Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gorecom, in which we sit down with small cap executives after they put out important news to discuss what they really mean. With us today, for the first time ever, Steve Saviuk. He's CEO of Valeo Pharma, trades on the CSC under the stock symbol VPH. For our friends in the US, under VPHIF, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under VP2. Now, for those of you new to the story, what exactly does Valeo do? And you know, I haven't been a big fan of small cap pharma in the past, not because they're not good companies, but small cap investors just didn't have that attention span to wait years to go through all sorts of phase 1, phase 2 tests. That's not the case here because Valeo is a commercial stage revenue generating Canadian pharma company right now. More than just lip service. Last quarter, for the quarter ending July 31st, $1.5 million in revenue. For the 9 months ending July 31st, they did $5.26 million in revenue. They say that they're approaching EBITDA positive in the coming months. Pipeline of products, 9 that are being currently marketed, 7 additional that are in the pipeline. And essentially their business model, because they're licensing technology, they're licensing pharma products, proprietary drugs from other companies, no development or clinical risk. And I really like that as well, because that's a tough pill sometimes, pardon the pun, to swallow in the small cap world, and they've got it covered. Steve, welcome to the show.
George, it's nice to be here. Nice to see you.
Great to have you. More importantly, great to discuss this press release that you put out a couple of days ago. Valeo Pharma announces Health Canada approval for Redesca and Redesca HP. Now, on its face, people really wouldn't know that that's a significant milestone of a press release. Before we get into the details, I've had some experience with, with this space, but you tell us, what is it about Redesca? What is the product essentially?
Well, as you mentioned earlier we're an in-licenser. So what that effectively means is we acquire the rights for Canada to various pharmaceutical drugs from either US companies, European companies, Asian companies that will not establish themselves in Canada and make those drugs available. Redesca is a drug that we've been working on, believe it or not, for about 4 or 5 years. In terms of their initial negotiations, it's the manufacturer is based in Asia. We were able to conclude those in early 2019, and ultimately that led to the approval by Health Canada last week, which we're very excited about. And the reason for that being is it will be our biggest drug once it's launched from a revenue perspective. So this is one of the key game changers, key drivers in our growth over the next 12 to 24 months will be the launch of Redesca. And to put it simply, what is Redesca? It's an injectable. It comes in a syringe. The product is delivered in a syringe and is used predominantly in the hospitals for as a blood thinner. So it prevents blood clots. As you know, these can be very dangerous. Sure. And this would be after any type of surgery, knee surgery, hip, cardiac surgery, different types of surgeries, whereby this is used for about 10 to 14 days to ensure that there's no blood clots that can migrate to the lungs, which could prove fatal.
I wish my brother had Redesca, because over the summer, unfortunately, now he's okay now, but he had some minor surgery and he had a pulmonary embolism.
That's correct.
So
that's
clearly whatever he was given didn't help prevent it after his basic surgery there. So that's why Redesca is so important.
Yeah, it's a big market in Canada. It's a very stable market. Again, it's a hospital product predominantly. The overall market is about $200 million on an annual basis. We feel we can capture 15 to 20% of that market, and therefore that's why I'm saying that this could be and probably will be our number one drug in a year's time or so, with gross or top line sales in the $30 or so million range. As an aside, in COVID-19, Redesca belongs to a class of drugs called low molecular weight heparins. And without getting into the detail of it, these drugs are administered routinely to patients that suffer from COVID-19 in the hospital to prevent small blood clots. As you probably read, this seems to be a problem in the lungs and in the brain, where these microembolisms are being found. There's a
right.
kind of a new kind of discovery. So it's pretty routine for all patients to be getting a Redesca type product to alleviate.
Wow. So while you're trying to get the rights and figuring that all out for Redesca over the last 4 or 5 years, as you said, for a very healthy market, right? The blood thinner market is a very healthy market. You also had this added bonus market, and it's too bad about the circumstance, but you get this bonus market where it also be needed for people suffering from COVID-19. That's a pretty big bump. Let me ask you something, devil's advocate. 15 to 30% of a $200 million market. First of all, that number is great. At 15%, you talk about $30 million. But let's talk about competition. What gives you guys the confidence that you'll be able to capture 15% of this marketplace when clearly there are already competitors in place right now? What gives you that confidence? What's so superior about the product?
There's a number of factors, and one of which is availability of supply. Heparin, or low molecular weight heparin, there are shortages globally that sort of fluctuate from time to time. Our licensor is the largest supplier of crude low molecular weight heparin in the world. So we went to the source. So we have the company that produces the most. So the security of supply is number one, and that's a big feature. Number two, we have the full lineup of products. There's no gaps in our lineup, so we have everything from the vial all the way up through the smallest syringe. Over 8 years of usage worldwide. In Europe alone, there's over 150 man days of usage of the product. So for instance, if you're on the drug for 1 day, that's considered 1 man day. We're talking 150 million man days. So extremely safe,
proven efficacy is there.
The safety profile, any adverse events, either on-site bleeding or anything, very low, lower than average. So just a very technically good product. And then the icing on the cake is a lower price. We're able to come in at a lower price, and it's considered in the family of drugs known as biosimilars, and we are seeing this coming into Canada quite dramatically, and it's saving the governments hundreds of millions of dollars, in addition to providing a very good drug. So the provinces are actually mandating or requiring the use of biosimilars over biologics. So that's another advantage that we bring in, is the governments are waiting for us to come in because we save the healthcare system money.
Yeah, the budgets are stretched, right? Anywhere they need to save, and if they can't. So I'm going to ask you a question. The assumption is, I'm assuming that you have had conversations with hospitals, provincial health, the provincial health departments. They know this is coming. So is it safe to assume that the market is kind of prepped, and they know you're coming, and you expect decent adoption because of that?
Yes, those discussions are well underway, and the receptiveness is very strong because of, especially with the COVID situation, which, as I mentioned, the drug is used for on a regular basis. But the fact that we'll be the first to launch gives us this first mover advantage, and I would say all the major provinces are in some level of discussion with us about the availability and when will the drug be available in Canada.
And what sounds great about this also, look, I can have the greatest widget in the world, the greatest, but distribution, my distribution model could bankrupt me because I've got to spend enormous amounts of money on marketing. I've got to spend enormous amounts of money on a direct sales force. It sounds like you have that covered, but correct me if I'm wrong, because you don't have that many customers at the end of the day. You're talking about hospitals, provinces. You don't need a massive team, or do you? What is your distribution model?
We have a fairly extensive sales team that not only sells Redesca, or will be selling Redesca, but we have a fairly growing, fairly large hospital portfolio as it is. But yes, clearly that we have some very sophisticated representatives, because it is a very technical product. So you have to explain the benefits and the features of this product. So it's a little different than what you've enunciated, but the cost of the sales force versus the potential of the product is insignificant, really. There's strong margins on the product at hospital level, at retail level. And we think, again, as I mentioned earlier, this will be our #1 product in terms of overall sales for the coming 12 to 24 months. And who knows after that, but we have some other products in the pipeline that we are pretty excited about also.
Well, let's talk about the number that you expect just out of Redesca. So if I extrapolate your numbers up until for the first 9 months, it looks like you're basically on a $7.5 million run rate, let's say, for the year, which is a nice number. But what kind of supercharge is Redesca going to give to your growth, given the fact that you're expecting $30 million? You're expecting $30 million in sales per year. And if I can ask the follow-up to that as you're answering that is, do you expect that to happen as of next year? Is adoption going to be pretty fast, or is it going to take a couple of years to get there?
So we finished the year over 8 gross, which was a nice little jump from last year, especially given the limitations imposed by the coronavirus, which were many, whether it be supply chain or what have you. This year we're looking at 20 to 25 million, so that's over a 100% jump. A lot of that will be fueled by Redesca. It won't be 30 million this year. Redesca will probably reach that number in, sort of 30 months from now, 36 months. So it takes some time because the process of converting hospitals, it's a contract process also. So there is a time line to it. But the other drug, or it's actually not a drug that I'd like to just touch upon, which will also be a big contributor this year, is something called Hesperico. Hesperico is our first over-the-counter product. It's a class of compounds called flavonoids. It's an extract from the citrus fruit. It has immune support properties. Actually, there was an article or a newsletter just published on Friday by MD Briefcase that compared Hesperico to vitamin C as a novel therapeutic approach for COVID-19. We're going to make that available on our website, on the Hesperico website, within the next 24 hours. We're very excited about the potential for this in Canada. We've launched it in Canada already, and it'll be launched in the US in early February. So again, it's a product that seems to reduce or prevent the symptoms of COVID-19, and it's a lot of research behind it. It's not just what I'm saying. There's literally 50, 75 research publications that have studied this compound and found it to be a very worthy candidate. At times like this, whether it's the fall, the regular cold and flu season, your immune system needs help. And a product like Hesperico, whether it's in the COVID-19 era, as you know, many flus are caused by a coronavirus, not necessarily SARS-CoV-2. So we think this product will have an important place in the pharmacy shelves and should be taken on a regular basis. I know everyone at our company takes it, and we pay for it. We don't get it for free.
I was about to say, you must be the healthiest company on the CSE.
I won't even say it, but touch wood, things are going okay so far. It's been tough on our people because we can, with some are working at home, but we ship from our warehouse right here. We have people that do quality work, regulatory work, things that right here, and they got to come to work every day. So thankfully, we try to protect them as much as we can.
And Hesperico sounds like a bit of a departure there, because I think you typically focus on the Canadian market, but you're actually be selling that to the U.S. market as well. How do you attack that market in the U.S. with a partner, or do you utilize your direct sales force and kind of divert some resources there?
Yeah, we will probably go with a partner at some point in time, but the channels are quite different, as you know. Interestingly enough, or sites like Amazon.com do a tremendous amount of business in terms of these class of products. So it's not a drug, it's not a prescription drug, so therefore it can be sold. So that will be one of our distribution points. We also will target some of the smaller US chains initially, which have maybe a bit more focus on providing customer support for their patients, where they come in and pharmacists will advise their patients. So this article that came out from MD Briefcase, or newsletter on Friday, is one of the ways we'll be marketing Hesperico in Canada, but also in the US. And I think as people read and know more about the ingredients within Hesperico, I think they'll be quite interested in using the product and in finding out more about it.
I am already. I got to tell you, literally when we go off camera, I'm going to ask you about it and then find out how I can get it, because if you guys have that much faith in it, why shouldn't I at the end of the day?
Amazon.ca. We have our own site, but I think Amazon.ca has better shipping costs than we do. I would encourage people to check it out.
Let me ask you about resources. The Chinese say sometimes be careful what you wish for. And you're getting these great things happening, and clearly 2021 sounds like it's going to be a real major jump for you. But in order to manage that growth, do you have, how's your balance sheet looking? Will you have a lot of cash requirements here? Because that's why I want to ask you, are you paying for the, how do you pay for the license? How do you pay per product? And then how do you collect, right? Obviously that's something. And the team, do you have everyone in place that you need to manage this kind of growth?
I think what we have in place right now is a very good base. Where we've added people recently has been more on the sales side. So the internal infrastructure to manage a much bigger company, and I'm talking a company that could be, 10 times our revenue size, has very little additional requirements from personnel internally. It would be more on the external sales side. We're not a virtual company. In the sense we have our own warehousing in the back. A lot of the various departments that a company like Pfizer would have, we have, obviously on a smaller scale, but within the confines of our building. So from a cash point of view, we're doing well. We just completed a financing in September, which was led by Stifel, the brokerage firm in Canada, where we raised $7 million. So from cash going forward, not looking to go back to the market. As far as new opportunities are concerned, because we're funded up for our older opportunities, when you in-license drugs, there's some financial commitment that the licensor is going to request of you.
Right, that's what I figured.
That can range from a milestone payment up front all the way to transfer price on the goods and a royalty. So it is a mix of these, and clearly, it varies. There are snowflakes, we call them. There's no two products that are the same. Right. No two financial.
George Com might want $1 million up front. Bob Com says, give me $100,000, but pay me $100,000 a month in installments. Yeah, they all come in different.
They all come. So.
Fair to say, though, you guys have the capital partners in the market that believe in you. And if you have to get to the market to fund something, because you guys have proven that you can take, this in-license model and be successful with it, you've got the partners.
Well, we've been around as a company since 2003, and we sold our business to Valeant, which is now Bosch Health, in 2014-15. When I say we sold our products, the majority of our products, to them, and kept the same team, and have rebuilt under a new, what we call therapeutic areas. So, neurology is one. Cancer/oncology is another. So these are new, where we're looking at products that specifically fit into those segments. So that's been new. It's taken time to rebuild that. But now, as you said quite correctly, we're at this inflection point. This year, Redesca was a key drug for us to get approved. It really sets us now apart from the old company, where we see that revenue potential is so strong. It's a big market. It'll be as I mentioned, I think it'll be our #1 product. And what's exciting is we have a pipeline of other products that some are smaller, but a few that are in the development cycle that we think could be quite large also. So it's that mix of products.
Yeah, nice.
I think people like. It's not a one product company. We're much like, as I say, some of the bigger companies where predominantly their revenue comes from 20%, but the other 80% contribute a lot of margin, and is very similar to us. Our big three will be Redesca, Hesperico, and OnStrive, which is for Parkinson's disease. We launched that a year and a half ago, starting to do very well as reimbursement, or the provinces are starting to embark on paying for the drug, which is a key component for pharmaceutical sales. Those three will be our big three in the next 12 to 24 months.
And I think the other intangible that we haven't touched on here, and again, this can be my assumption, but the more successful you become, the more you prove yourselves to the bigger pharma companies out there that, hey, you can, go when you're competing for a drug next time, and you're competing against George Com, and you can go out to the, like, as you said, with Redesca, you went to the source, and you can say, hey, we've got 9 products already being marketed. We've got 7 that are in the pipeline. We're successful. So does your business actually get stronger as with each one, not just because you're increasing revenue, like we all understand that, but because you're proving to the world that, hey, if you want to bring your products to Canada, we're the de facto partner?
Yeah, that's you're right on that. As the bigger you get it, and the more products you have in the market, and more success, the easier it is to talk to other pharmaceutical. I shouldn't say it's easier, but obviously they see you in a slightly
For
better
sure.
light. And but what's also important is to focus on certain therapeutic areas. We just launched this summer our first drug in oncology. It's a very small drug for a very rare type of cancer. But as a result of that, we're now talking to 3 other companies that have drugs that would like to come to Canada in oncology, because they say, it's not how big a drug is sometimes, it's the complexity of it. If we're able to support this very complex drug, because it's very technical to sell, it has a lot of reporting requirements, it has a lot of medical information. The fact that you have those systems, risk management system in place, that's the kind of thing that attracts also other companies, because they know you can handle these drugs. And it's what patients see in a drug often is just the administration of the drug. What they don't see is the support
Yeah.
necessarily behind these drugs. And this is what's important.
Tracing, tracking, all those things, inventory control, security. Yeah, it's not just you're not just importing stuffed animals and selling them out the door. I mean, this is pretty sophisticated stuff that has a lot of control and security and
And in
handling
some
around it.
cases, it's the way it's shipped. As you've seen now with this, the vaccine from Pfizer, where they're talking about, minus 80 or some very cold temperature. We have drugs that are like that too, not necessarily that cold, but something that's more in the 2 to 8 range, and that we have to monitor if we're shipping to Vancouver, that it gets there within the time, and that it has no temperature excursion. So all of those capabilities are the things that licensors look for when they're saying, is this company capable of technically handling our drug and also commercializing our drug? So and as you say, the more drugs you have, the more you've proven yourself. Companies do look at you as a more senior company. That's our what we've done the last few years, but that'll start to increase as over the next year or two also.
Business 101, right? The big guys, nobody wants to be first. Nobody wants to be your first customer. I don't care what it is. No one wants to be your first customer. So you fight to get those 1 or 2 or 3. And then after that, you can start to, you really accelerate. That's why they always say making your first million is the hardest, because after that, it gets a lot easier. But well done, Steve. Congratulations to you and the Valeo team on what you've accomplished here. I mean, look, you're going to have a solid 2020 coming in at just over $8 million gross, as you said, in revenue, which is a really nice number in the small cap world. But with Redesca here, it sounds like you're really going to go to the next level in 2021. Can't wait to have you back to talk about it, every couple of weeks if we have to, because I love what I'm hearing about the pipeline.
Yeah, we think, as a lot of these sort of mid cap or small cap companies, they're very events driven, in the sense people want to get news, and then they don't hear about the company for a while. I think what you'll see from us over the next 6 months is a lot of news coming out about on the product side, on the business side. And we, through Agoracom, love to stay in touch with our shareholders, and especially in a smaller. Now we do have, what's interesting is, for a small company, we do have one research report. Industrial Alliance has put out a research report on us. They're healthcare analysts. I'd like to think that over the course of the next 6 months, we might get 1 or 2 more analysts to follow us. Anything to give information to the market that people can actually look at the progress we're making and follow us. We have a close affinity with our outside shareholders, and management, directors, and employees still own over 65% of this company. Wow. So we have a lot of.
When your money where your mouth is, you got to love that in the small cap world. You guys aren't there. You guys aren't there cutting paychecks, finance, cut a paycheck and just paying for your jobs. You've got, collectively, you guys own 65% of that. That's one of the biggest numbers I've heard, actually, to be quite frank.
We have a lot of what you call skin in the game. So our motivation is to build a company that builds a share price. And I think our investors and your viewers, I think, have the same motivation. Buy into companies where management is committed. It's not a paycheck to paycheck kind of culture in our business. We've all put serious amounts of money in, and I think into buying shares of this company. And I think that really aligns us well with our outside shareholders.
Well, look, I can tell you, I'm glad to be on this team. We're all a good Gorcom, glad to be on this team while you guys doing the hardest work, which is getting all these things done in order to issue the press releases. We're going to make sure that everyone in between the posts is getting the information they need, to understand what is Redesca, what is the market for it, because you can't say all that sometimes a press release. And we can't wait to take the Valeo story to the market in 2021. It's a great company, and really glad to have had this first interview with you, Steve. You hit it out of the park.
Thank you, and we look forward to having many more throughout the course of the year.
Absolutely. You've been watching or you've been listening by podcast to Steve Saviak. He's CEO of Valeo Pharma, trades on the CSC and the stock symbol VPH. For those of you in the US, VPHIF, and for our friends in Europe, VP2 on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Look, we know that, especially for those of you who are watching and listening for the first time, it's a great story. Clearly, you heard it, but you can't understand all of it in one shot. So what we've done to help you with your due diligence is get to the Valeo Hub on Agoracom. Go to the profile page there, and we've got all of this laid out for you nicely to review at your leisure, take your time, really absorb it. Also, you can link over the Valeo website to continue due diligence. We know that Christmas isn't going to be the same as other years. We're not going to be at the parties, not going to be running around the malls. We're going to have a lot more time on our hands. So, enjoy the Christmas holiday or the holidays for how you're celebrating, but you got time in your hands. Do your due diligence on Valeo. You've seen the numbers they're going to do in 2020. You've heard what this product's going to do in 2021, and there's so much more coming. You got to stay on top of it and hopefully found your next great small cap company. Thanks for joining us. Have a fantastic day. See you next time.